Welcome to the Prison Pod. This series, Leaving the Emotional Cage with Rob Corbin, consists of 7 episodes. For the best experience, please start with episode 1. Rob Corbin is a former inmate in the 1980s. He experienced living in 2 prisons at the same time, and he will talk in detail about what that means. Rob has 46 years of experience living with hate, anger, resentment, bitterness, and rage towards his own father. He will talk about his journey and what changed his life, letting it all go within minutes. He is an ebook author on the subject of forgiveness, grief, and trauma, and is a credentialed support group facilitator. For the past 8 years, he has been working with prisons in Oregon, Arizona, and California as an unpaid volunteer, teaching a step-by-step process to come to a moment in one's life where they can let go of the toxic emotional past. We are thankful to Rob for sharing this series with our listeners.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Prison Pod. Today we are going to be recording episode 5, Don't Do It Alone, with Rob Corbin. And again, this is on forgiveness, leaving the emotional cage. So great to have you back again, Rob.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be here. This is a big day for me coming up. I'm going to be let's see here, about 8 hours. I'll be lying in an operating room, and they're going to be putting a catheter into my heart and seeing what's going on with maybe blockage and stuff. So I'm a little anxious about that, but I'm really glad that we're doing this because it's taking my mind off of the activities later in the day today. So I'm glad that we're doing this. I need a little distraction this morning. So, yeah.
I'm sending some virtual positive energy your way.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. Thank you. All right. I can actually feel a little bit of it right now. So that's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we've been doing lots of talking on forgiving, and I think today's subject is a really important one because a lot of times we try to do everything on our own, and that's not always possible. So I think that this is exactly what we're looking at today. Could you talk a little about that?
Yeah. You know, when I came up with this name of the episode, that it won't work on your own. The fact is that it may work on your own, but there's a risk involved that it won't. And we're really good at making commitments and not keeping them. For those listening, there probably are some men who are nodding their heads up and down when I say we're good at making commitments and not keeping them. When it comes to making commitments to others and not keeping them, we do the same thing to ourselves. We make commitments to ourselves and we don't follow through on it. And I'll tell you why, because there's no one to hold us accountable for our actions. Who's going to know other than us, right? By the way, Valerie, I got to tell you a little joke when we talk about accountability. Who's going to know? I got to share this because it's funny. So a priest in a church that for Sunday morning mass, the priest calls in sick because he's just itching to go play golf, and so he calls the church a couple hours before mass and he says, I'm not going to make it in today. I'm not feeling well. I'm under the weather. You're going to, have to find another priest, and, oh gosh, Father, thanks for the call. I hope you feel better. And yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to be okay. So then he got an out to go play golf, right? He's on the golf course. It's just him. He's on the golf course. And the first hit is a hole in one. The guy, the priest can't believe it. That is the first time in his years of playing golf that he finally hits a hole in one. So he's really excited. And he's thinking, gosh, I can't wait to share this with my congregation. And then he stops and realizes, oh man, I can't do that because I'm supposed to be sick. So he says, who's going to find out? I want to share it with everybody, but I can't share it with anyone because I'm supposed to be in bed sick, so it's kind of a funny joke when I heard it. But anyway, so when we make commitments to do something, there's got to be accountability. That if we choose not to fulfill that commitment or we break that commitment, then the consequence is more than just us. It's someone else. And in my class, when it comes to forgiving and making a commitment to forgive, part of the process, Valerie, in this work that we do is we choose other men or women, depending on where it is, to hold us accountable for the decision that we're going to make if we choose, in fact, to make that decision to forgive. Forgiving is a choice. And the way it works is that we, the men choose other men in the circle, and they ask those men if they're willing to hold them accountable, to hold this person accountable. If the men agree, then I explain to them their role. And their role in this commitment is that if the person who is making the commitment goes sideways, or if they wake up the next morning with, and they doubt themselves. And by the way, doubt is normal. Well, we always doubt ourselves. We always, uh, SHI ourselves, and so when we hold other men to hold us accountable, our commitment as the person that is making this promise to forgive is that if we doubt ourselves, we're going to go to those other people who allowed us to hold them accountable and share with them, hey, you know what, I made a commitment yesterday in Rob's class, and I'm not sure if I really meant it because I'm feeling doubt right now. I made a commitment to forgive my father, and I said it out loud that I hereby, agree to hold the past in the past and not let it affect me emotionally going forward. And I release this negative energy and I forgive my father. And then they wake up the next morning or the next week and they're feeling doubt, that they go to these other men who have agreed to hold them accountable and tell them the truth. Hey, I'm feeling doubt. I'm not sure if I really meant what I said. And those men, their role is to remind the person who made the commitment that they made an irrevocable decision. Irrevocable meaning it's a non-negotiable decision. Irrevocable means you can't go back on your word, And so we need to be reminded by others when we make commitments. And the only way we're going to do that is to allow others to hold us accountable for the commitments that we make. So then, if we're feeling doubt or we break the commitment, it's no longer just about us. It's about us and the other people.
I kind of thought about the idea of having a sponsor in AA, that person to go to, or a mentor,
Yeah.
But so does this person that you're accountable to have a phrase like sponsor, or is it their accountability partner?
I call it, in my class, I call it men that they choose for support and accountability, support and accountability. So they play two roles. One is emotional support during the process, where there's a questionnaire, and part of the process of forgiving is reading the questionnaire. And then there is a pledge that they read out loud. And that pledge includes the words, an irrevocable decision. I choose to make an irrevocable decision to forgive this person or forgive myself, or both. Forgiving is not just about forgiving others, it's about forgiving ourselves. So whatever they make a decision to do, they are using the words, an irrevocable, non-negotiable decision. they are they are stating those words freely. And I tell them, hey, read the words first. If you're not 100% secure in reading it out loud, then don't do it. But if you do read it out loud, you are making an irrevocable decision. And you're going to be held accountable. And your accountability also is to go to those men who agreed to support you and to share with them your struggles of holding that commitment. So, it's a higher level of commitment when there's others involved and it's not just us.
The thing I love about this whole process is, even though it's based on forgiveness, it's also, I don't know if the word teaching is the word I want to use, but it's showing other ways and skills and tools of communicating with other people, which helps build a level of trust amongst the men, which is something that's missing inside prisons. Trust
Yes.
is one of the biggest things in the world that you have to be really, really careful who you trust, and to trust with your emotional end. So to be able to give that ability for them to share with each other, to tap into those emotions and feelings that have probably been dead for many years because they've not been allowed.
Yeah, it's not, it's often in our upbringing that, it's been pounded into too many men in this universe that men are strong, and the definition of strength is not showing emotional vulnerability. And so we've been denied permission. Millions of men across the world have been denied permission to allow themselves to be emotionally the way that we were designed to be. And we're taught by others to suppress that. So, in reality, strength is allowing yourself to be authentic, and authentic is the ability to own your truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to emotions. And, it's easier to go to a woman if you're a man, because, they're much more sympathetic. But, women did not grow up with the same discipline and under the same restrictions that a lot of us men, grew up with strict fathers who were, had that macho image, and it was so important for that macho image to be transferred to their son, because that's what they learned from their father, And so allowing other men to be, to allow other men to hold us accountable means that we have to trust emotionally those men, and that they care about us enough to hold us accountable. It's a real close relationship emotionally that we form with other men when we totally trust them emotionally. And there needs to be more than, there needs to be more of that in prison. I know that there's people that click with other people in prison, but, they don't normally share their deepest wounds and the shadow, that dark side of us emotionally that for many men they've been carrying around for a long time. And it's the moment of truth is a very powerful moment when we're able to share that truth and share it based on our emotions. It's a very powerful experience.
I have a question. Have you ever presented this program to the staff?
No. I've never requested to present it to the staff, and the various prisons have never brought up that as an option. When I do this work, ironically, I travel. My home state is Arizona, and Arizona is the most difficult place for me to get into the door. So my work takes me to California for the most part, Central and Northern California. we're talking about an 8 to 10 hour drive, for me to get from Phoenix to Sacramento or Central California. Often I fly. And, because I pay out of my own pocket, candidly, I don't come in that, as often as I'd like to, every 2 to 3 months. And when I'm there for somewhere between 2 and 4 days. It just depends on the prison and if they have the chapel open, or if there's a room that will accommodate, 20 to 25 minutes. Space is always a problem in prison, to have the space, especially to devote to a full day class. So, and then the other thing is, Valerie, there's more men who sign up than there's space available. So, this is for the inmates. If a prison asks me to come in and to devote my program to staff, I would certainly consider it, but it would be a separate program, because I don't want to interfere with the work that I'm doing with the inmates, but it's certainly a good idea.
I think it would be an amazing idea, only because, I don't know if we've had this conversation, but the conversation has happened many times on the podcast that a lot of people who go into corrections have the same backgrounds, problems, dysfunctional homes as people who end up in prison. So if they have all those emotional baggages that they're lugging around, they're bringing that to work, and they're bringing that into the daily interactions with the men and women that they work with.
Yeah.
So this whole thing about forgiving and emotional healing, this goes across the board throughout society, especially today. So I want people to be aware this is not something that just happens to people in prison. I mean, we all have these
all of us
barriers. All of us, exactly.
All of us.
So I don't want to have people that are sitting inside listening to this thinking that we're saying, oh, well, it's only them. And it's not just them that need to ask for forgiveness. This is the other misconception, is they have just as many incidences in people to forgive in their lives who may have let them down and not given them the proper guidance to get from point A to point B, from childhood to adulthood.
I'll tell you, good point. I'll tell you something that I'm reminded of as you're talking, Valerie. Most of the prisons I go into, I don't have a what's called a brown card, because I'm not there that often. That allows me to go unescorted into the different yards. It's called a brown card, and I don't hold a brown card, so I have to have an escort. And the escort is usually someone who is a staff member. It always actually is someone who's a staff member. It can be a correctional officer who wants to make a little extra dough on his time off, who volunteers, or it can be someone else. And they sit in usually the chaplain's office, which there is a barrier between that and the chapel itself, so they don't hear what's going on. But they often ask me, what kind of class is this? And I tell, it's a class on forgiveness. Oh, wow. And tell me a little more. Is it forgiving others, forgiving ourselves? So as we're walking in the yard, I tell them a little bit about the class, and, invariably, even in the short time that we're just talking and walking, which is, 5 minutes, they're sharing with me their stuff. They're sharing with me their stuff. So, everybody has some forgiving to do, and everybody has some emotional wounds from the past, that carry an unnecessary weight on their shoulders. It's people on the inside, people on the outside. It's really the same. I mean, there's a lot of wounded people in this world that go back to childhood to identify a lot of these wounds. And doesn't matter, ethnicity or religion or things like that. It's just, this is a human being issue regarding family relationships. And, in my own judgment, a normal relationship is chaos. I mean, there is no normal relationship. The old movies, Harriet and Ozzie or whatever, these old television shows where they show a family that all is happy and well, and the kids are happy and well, and they have a nice car, and they wake up every day, and they go to church on Sundays. That's not reality. That's not reality. So dysfunction happens everywhere.
Isn't that the truth? We see it every day if you watch the news, especially.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something. You made a comment when we were talking about support and accountability. And in the pledge, it says, I choose. And that's one thing I'd like to go back to is choices we make. How does someone go about making the choice to start this work? How do they let go? I mean, so many people are afraid to let go of that barrier, that those walls that they've built up. Do you have any suggestions about how they go about seeking out a process like this?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, if anybody is listening to this program that is saying, I'd like to explore having a program like this where I am, they could certainly reach out to me. Or it'd probably be better to reach out to their community resource manager, or their counselor, and just say, hey, I've been listening to this podcast, and there's a guy on there by the name of Rob Corbin, and he does some work on forgiveness, and I wanted to bring his work to your attention to see if you could reach out to him and see if he's available to come in. Let me tell you, Valerie, I'll never say no to an invitation to come in to a prison. It might not be that week or that month, but I'll never turn my back on it. And the CRM or the counselor or the chaplain, they've got the internet connection, so they can Google my name, and my contact information will come right up. I've got some presence on the internet with stuff that I've done, so they'll be able to easily find me. It's my last name is spelled Corbin, first name is Robert, and they'll be able to find me. So and then on Facebook as well. So go to your CRM, go to your counselor, go to the chaplain, or whoever you think has the whoever is lending an open ear and can articulate to themselves that there might be a need for this. The other thing is there's some great books out there. Before I developed this program, I did some book reading, and I went to the library, and I went to Amazon, and I bought some books on forgiveness. There's a lot of books on forgiveness, and a lot of great books on forgiveness. And I read some of these books as a way to be able to, to be able to offer the best program possible. And so, I don't claim originality to my work. We're all good students. I just claim that I'm a learner and based on my own experience. So a lot of good books out there. Maybe in one of our future podcasts, I could present a list of some of these books that would provide your listeners with some resources, and then they could contact their people in terms of maybe getting some of these books. And there's used ones as well, on the market.
Yeah, that would be great. And because that's also something that I do sometimes too, is send some books into some of the facilities. So And I want to bring up something for those of you that don't have access to this program that Rob is doing right now. As far as accountability, if you want to do something to make some changes in your lives right now, think of something that you want to accomplish while you're there and talk it over with, either a cellie or someone you trust and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And can you kind of have my back? And it gives you that first step. That's the thing about, I read a lot of stuff with, by James Clear, and there's somebody else on atomic habits and creating good habits. And that's one of those things. Accountability is a good habit to have. Because it does keep us in line. And you made a really important a comment about, we often want to keep other people accountable, but we don't hold ourselves accountable. And, I'm trying to eat really healthy right now, and I still will go and pick up that stinking cookie once in a while. And if you look at it as you're putting poison into your body, with the sugar and the fat and all the stuff you're not supposed to have, then you look at it a little bit different. So
the other thing I want to go back to that you brought up, and that is, forgiving is a choice. Not forgiving is also a choice, right? So one of the things that I occasionally use in my class that's very, very beneficial, and that is to get a piece of paper, draw a line in the middle. One side, you write down advantages, and then the other side, you write down disadvantages. And under advantages, answer the question, what is the advantage or what's the benefit to me of choosing not to forgive? What's the benefit to me of holding on to all these negative, emotional, toxic feelings that are inside of me and have been for way too long? If I choose to hold on to those feelings, there's got to be a benefit to that. We choose things that are supposed to be good for us, right? We choose things because there's going to be a benefit in that choice. Visualize going through a buffet and they've got, in the buffet, they've got liver and onions, and then they have chicken fillet and steak. Most people are going to choose something other than the liver and onions, right? It's a choice because it's going to taste better. So what's the benefit? The benefit is it's going to taste better, right? So it's a weird analogy, but there's some truth behind it. What is the advantage? What's the benefit of holding on to anger and hate, resentment, remorse, regret? If forgiving is a choice, and it is, there's got to be a benefit. And so, this exercise is designed to show in clear black and white letters, staring right at us, that at the end of the day, that there is no benefit in choosing to hold on to all this stuff. No one is a winner. They're a victim when they choose to hold on to negative stuff. And, we have the right in this universe, because of being a human being and being able to make decisions, to let go of that stuff.
Boy, in a short amount of time, we sure have covered a lot today. Yeah. I know that we wanted to keep it around a half hour today. Was there anything else you want to add before we wrap up the session?
Well, for those who were listening, if you want to send some good vibes my way on my procedure today, it's a pretty important day. And you know what? I'm going to own my truth emotionally and say that I've got some fear going into this procedure. I've got some fear and some anxiety. And I'm not afraid to share that, and so maybe the people listening can send me some good vibes, and I'll grab some of them, and that'll release some of my anxiety. So, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and how much I appreciate you and being able to be a part of this program.
Thanks so much, Rob. And, I have been talking about this to so many people, saying, wait till you see what we have coming up, because I really feel that the message that you have is so important to everybody, but especially those people that are sitting inside who have a tendency to blame themselves for everything that's happened to them, where they can forgive themselves for them being a human being, but also forgive others who that they loved or that they cared for, and maybe mend some of those relationships, and the ones that they can't, at least be at peace.
Yeah.
And that is so important to all of us, to have peace within ourselves.
Absolutely. One more thing I want to add before we go, and that is, coming to that place of peace, one of the things that we fail to recognize, and that is that a lot of these emotions start when we were really young, as kids, 8, 9, 10, 11 years of age. We're powerless. As an 8-year-old, we're powerless to prevent things from happening to us by an adult, and we need to realize that, that there's things that were said or done to us that were hurtful, but we didn't have the ability as a kid to react as an adult. And we need to realize that and understand. I think that'll help in some way to be able to get rid of some of those feelings of fault, that we weren't good enough, or we didn't do this or we didn't do that, as a child, because children aren't the almighty and powerful. We're kids. We're not adults. So that's just a little takeaway from this podcast I'd like to leave people with.
I'm going to add a little bit to that too, is emotions. Children haven't learned how to deal with some of the emotions they're having. So the way that that's processed internally is different than how we look when we relook at it as an adult. We can have a different understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we're sending all those positive vibes your way, Rob Corbin, for a very healthy procedure, a very smooth day for you.
Thank you.
The doctors are all had a nice restful sleep, and they're waiting for you.
Yeah.
And
amen.
We'll be checking in with you as soon as you're ready.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. Blessings your way. By the way, I also want to say happy Thanksgiving to all those listening, and to you. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving.
And you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again on the Prison Pod. Rob Corbin has been with us again today, and we've been talking about something really important, and that is don't do it alone.
You have been listening to the Prison Pod, a podcast not just for those in prison but for anyone who has been affected by incarceration. Ms. Valerie would love for you to write to her with your questions, comments, and show ideas. The address is Prison Pod, Post Office Box 294, Orono, Maine. 04473. Remember, reading opens doors, so pick up that book.
Attention! Choreo, a better way to connect with loved ones who are incarcerated. Without Choreo, family and friends wait for a call and hope they can answer. With Choreo, inmates can call or message at any time. When your inmate calls their Choreo number, they will hear your voice and text messages. Inmates receive and leave messages at any time using standard prison phones, making connection easy and predictable. For information about Choreo, visit choreo.org. Stay connected.